I'd like to call to order the Community Safety and Public Service Committee meeting of August the 16th, 2022. Tammy, in terms of FOIA, are we in compliance?
Yes, sir, we are.
Would you kindly do a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ames?
Present.
Mr. Lennox?
Here.
Mr. Stanford?
Here.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
All present, sir.
Thank you. Next, in terms of appearance by citizens, do we have any citizen or citizens that would wish to come forward?
Yes, sir. I have a few citizens here signed up. The very first citizen I have is Nell Hay. Ms. Hay?
Good morning, Ms. Hayes.
My name is Nell Hay, and I'm the chairman of the Gala Museum, and I'm here in support of this wonderful program that you're proposing, but only if you have a sincere interest in our Gala community. We don't want anyone just coming and going through the motions of it, but having a sincere interest in learning about the history and the survival of our people on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, sir, we have Mr. Levon Stevens.
Good morning, Levon. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. Levon Stevens, Chairman of the Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force. Thank you for allowing me to speak. It's come to our attention that there are some questions and issues about the education program that the task force has worked on. The town council has identified the Gullah Geechee culture as an important part of the town's strategic plan. We've had consultants over the years recognize the culture as an endangered core value. The natives of our Gullah Geechee culture have been recognized as disenfranchised people. Many of us say that we love the Gullah Geechee culture and the people. The town has established the Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force to identify ways to promote and preserve this part of our community. I've served on the Planning Commission for 6 years and now have led the task force for the last several years. We have once again engaged the community to participate in studies and gathered public input and come up with several recommendations. All of these have been approved by town council. Of those recommendations, we have selected 16 to be a top priority. This community, including myself, are weary of participating in these futile exercises only to arrive at our policymakers to find that there are so-called questions about our work. What is the real problem here? Anytime we speak of advancing our community with education of diversity and equity, there seems to be questions or problems. If this town and this council are not serious about cultural preservation, then that is what needs to be said. We are tired of hiding behind the pretense that we want to help people. The task force and the staff have worked very hard on this educational program. You as council members should have more trust and transparency in the way you work with us. At the last meeting, this item was not even discussed. The agenda was not amended, and it was pushed aside. Our public demands that we work in an atmosphere of trust and transparency. This is a disturbing trend that happens when we talk about education, culture, inclusion, and diversity. This trend over the period of history is recognized as ignorance, and ignorance promotes hatred. Therefore, people of the Native Island Gullah Geechee culture often do not trust the town to protect and preserve our Gullah Geechee culture. There's a lack of knowledge when we approach our community. How can we as council members and staff operate to promote and preserve a culture if we are ignorant about the people who live in it? There are challenges in our communities, economic opportunities within the Gullah Geechee community. We already see examples of what can happen when a developer wants to expand a project to encroach on a treasured local Gullah cemetery. Because of the lack of the knowledge of the town, it was approved, and now we face lawsuits in efforts to try and undo an ugly situation. We also see what happens when Gullah businesses are experiencing issues in startup and operations in relation to neighbors in the community. These neighbors and developments were not here years ago. The Gullah neighborhoods and community have enjoyed a way of life before the establishment of the town. The town was dropped on top of a culture that already existed here for hundreds of years. That is why this educational program should be mandatory for the town council and staff. This educational program should be one that is embraced and celebrated. The work that we've done together should be recognized and elevated to a higher place in our community, something that we can all be proud of. Please stop what appears to be blatant discrimination. Please stop wasting the time of well-meaning volunteers like myself. Please stop wasting the town's resources if we are not serious about cultural preservation and the advancement of a community that is diverse and inclusive. The Office of Cultural Affairs experienced same challenges in introducing an educational program that included diversity, equity, and inclusion. Are we going to experience this every time we try to move our community forward? If there are sensitive issues to discuss, we need to discuss that publicly and intelligently. If there are small grammatical concerns, then that is certainly not a reason to table this item. Many of our citizens have helped to develop our strategic plan. Let's start living up to those core values identified in that plan. Let's restore the public trust, and let's stop hiding behind ignorance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Ms. Louise Cohen, please. Dr. Cohen.
Hello, everybody. I am Louise Miller Cohen. I'm a native of Hilton Head Island. I'm a member of the 5th generation of my family. Well, LaVon has kind of said it all, but I just want to say that I think, well, I don't know that we need to tell the story over and over and over again. I thought everybody knew the story, how our people were brought here from Africa against their will, and of course sold off on the auction block, Charleston, South Carolina, and elsewhere, and of course, end up on these plantations. Like my great-great-grandfather was born on December 12th, 1828, on Rose Hill Plantation. Had to escape from that plantation to be free, and that he did after the Civil War. We are his descendants. A lot of us are here in this room, and so came to Hilton Head Island, and of course when lands, and they're talking about the 40 acres and a mule that was supposed to be given to the people, well, of course, President Lincoln died, and a lot of that was reversed. So our people got nothing. But still, they took that same little something that they had, and they had a desire to be free, and they also wanted to have something to leave here for their descendants. That's what they did. Caesar Jones purchased over 125 acres of land when he was given the opportunity to purchase land. William Simmons purchased 15 acres on Gumtree Road. That's where we are today. That's where the Gala Museum is today. So we are here, their descendants, to tell the story. People, you are inviting people from all over to come to Hilton and come to paradise. Come to paradise and enjoy and experience paradise. Well, I don't know whether the people knew who they was going to see when they got to paradise, but they see these black faces like mine and like the other people in the room, the native of Hilton Head Island and all the other people who came to Hilton Head to make Hilton Head home. I wonder what the problem is. What the problem is about telling the story about these people who were here. We're still here and we're going to be here because God allowed us to be here. He allowed us when our people had hardly nothing. They took that same little something and they followed the word of God. Proverbs 13 and 22 say, a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. That's what our people did. And we are here to tell this story. We're here to enjoy the land peacefully, like everybody else who we invite to come here. And for somebody to not think that it's important for the town staff and all the officials and stuff to know the story, what's the problem? I wonder, here it is, 2022. What you hiding? The story that you're trying to hide from your children and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they're going to find out anyway. And when they do find out, they're going to fault you for telling them a lie. So why don't we do the right thing? And let's all of us, we live in here, let all of us enjoy the land. Don't wait until the hurricane come and almost wipe us out for us to get together and pray. Okay? So I'm here this morning because I want to see the right thing done. And of course, the town, you are the head of Hilton Head. So of course, we look to you for leadership. And we ask that you lead us in the right direction, doing the right thing. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Boyce.
Thank you.
Ibrahim Abdul Malik, please.
Ibrahim Abdul Malik. Of the 31 some odd suggestions that were submitted by the consultant and unanimously accepted by the town, this particular item, the education of town officials and employees, was characterized by the Gala Task Force, along with other of those different items, as low-hanging fruit. It was spoken of in this way because we thought that if we could let the community see that progress was being made, that some things were being done, that we could build up trust capital between the community and the town. 25 years of reports, master plans, initiatives, Sherrod studies, with very little results. You can imagine that the trust level between the town and the Gala community was considerably low, or perhaps even non-existent. Now, unlike a request to have density increased, or a buffer reduced, or zoning changed, this simple request would not be nearly as complicated as an LM or rewrite, so it would seem. 5 years into the cultural preservation, and the task force simply asked for something as simple as an orientation session on the history of the Gala inhabitants for the staff and the elected representatives on this island, and it is yet to be a reality. Why is this important? People need to know that life on Hilton Head didn't start with the development of gated communities. They also need to know that the cultural and community life of the Gala folks on Hilton Head isn't limited to singing the beautiful gospel songs, clapping hands, cooking shrimp and grits, and eating frogmore stew. We need to know about the land holdings that were in the hands of Gala families prior to the inception of the town. They need to know about the many businesses and entrepreneurs that were established in our communities that made us self-sustaining, but also served as models for us to follow. Mr. Frazier, Mr. Simmons, Mr. Singleton, Mr. David Jones, Mr. Orange, Mr. Barnwell, hairdressers, transportation services, farmers, fishers, seamstresses. So why is this necessary? Shortly after the inception of the Gala Task Force, during one of our meetings, a high-ranking official of the town, Charles Cousins, is on record for having made a derogatory statement about a Gala citizen because he disagreed with a question or a statement that that citizen made. this particular town official was given a promotion. In June of 2019, in another meeting, Town Attorney Brian Hubert referred to the task force and the Gala citizens as "you people," a derogatory, dismissive expression that suggests that us, our concerns aren't even worth being considered. Further, under the tenure of the same attorney, a town code enforcement officer, namely Wendy Conant, went onto the property of a Gala business person to remove some signage and physically assaulted the wife of that business. We never knew what happened in that case. We don't know if any kind of disciplinary action was enacted. But we do know this: that same attorney, in fact, told that business owner that that code enforcement person was within their right to put their hands on his wife. So I ask, how many other non-publicized incidents have taken place because of an insensitivity towards a people's presence? I fully support the education of town staff and representatives on the history of the Gala people, because educating ourselves, being more informed is good, is excellent, especially if that education can be viewed as a means towards increasing mutual respect and mutual regard for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
And lastly, sir, we have Benjamin Kinnis.
Morning, Benjamin.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members, I'm Benjamin Kinnis, Ben, if you will. I live in Palmetto Dunes. I am president of the Military Veterans Coalition. We partner with the town to put on the events like the Memorial Day event, the Veterans Day event, and we sell the bricks. I'm also vice commander of the Arthur E. Wiley Post 42 of the American Legion here in Hilton Head. And some of you, or some in the gallery here, may not know who Mr. Arthur E. Wiley was. He was a native islander. He was drafted into the United States Army during World War I, served honorably, returned home, and became somewhat of a community organizer, if you will. He led the effort to raise money and work with the county to build the Cherry Hill School out on Dillon Road. But Post 42 is, because of our age, we're mostly what I affectionately refer to as just sorry old Vietnam veterans. We don't matter anymore, not that we ever did. But within Post 42, there is a very significant number of people that do matter, and that's our predominantly Native American membership. These are some of the most patriotic Americans I have ever met, and these are all Americans that served their country honorably. Often at times, the country didn't serve them honorably. They're American heroes, and they're part of the fabric of the Hilton Head community, but often their story is not told. Many shed their blood for you and the citizens of this island and indeed this country. And I believe the elected leaders and those appointed to implement our laws and other public policy should be aware of this history and the contributions made, not just by the Gullah community as a whole, as large as that impact is, but especially of our military veterans here of the Native Islander communities. I urge you to vote unanimously for the resolution that will authorize the implementation of the Gullah History and Education Program for town employees and other officials, and I urge you to vote unanimously for it and take it back to the council and urge them to vote unanimously for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, that concludes appearance by citizens.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is committee business. And before us today, we have a consideration of a resolution of the town of Hilton Head Island authorizing the implementation of the Gala History and Cultural Education Program for the town employees and officials. At our last meeting, there were points of ambiguity that we felt appropriate to get resolved. We've asked Sean Collin to pull together the comments or questions that were raised and to address them before our committee today. I would now like to ask Sean to come forward and present this information. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Sean Colin, Assistant Town Manager with oversight of community development. Staff in my department has been directly working with the task force over the past several years, including drafting of this education and orientation program that's before you today. There we go. What's asked of the committee is to consider a resolution to advance the town council authorizing the implementation of the history and cultural education program that was recommended by the task force. It was recommended the task force on July 11th. I do understand it was on a committee meeting in July, and there were a few questions that I will answer here in just a few minutes. And then hopefully you'll take affirmative action to move this thing on to council for consideration. Let's see if, okay. I do want to go back a little bit and just remind council that when the Gullah Geechee Task Force worked with a Walker consultant to develop the report, there were many recommendations that were included. Town council asked the task force to go back and help prioritize what they thought were top recommendations. So the overall were reduced to 16 priority recommendations. Cultural preservation -7 recommendation for officials. It expanded to school teachers, but we're not talking about that here. We're trying to talk about in-house town officials and staff. To really gain a better understanding and awareness of culture and history, especially as you interact with our customers and members of the community. I've had the pleasure of meeting almost everyone in this room and working with many of those in this room. I'm certainly better off in my position having and I learn every day, but a deeper understanding of the history and the DNA of Hilton Head. Including the Gullah culture, Native Island community issues, and I believe we're moving in the right direction to provide better customer service across the board to everyone in our community. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but this was kind of the high-level overview of what's included in the packet. Really there was an initial orientation and education session that would be meant for all staff, for all officials of the town, again to create an awareness. And you can see the topics: settlement of the Gullah people on Hilton Island, economic activities, the economic impact that the Gullah the culture has had over the years and continues to have on Hilton Head, a deeper understanding of the culture in general. Understanding of the historic communities that we have, the historic neighborhoods on Hilton Head. We know that we have challenges to land retention for Native Islanders and sustainability. We have, again, been improving our service. We've had roughly 30 folks come through the design studio that we've created here recently to help provide assistance with land and other issues that folks have been faced over the years. And then proposed public policy initiatives for historic neighborhoods. Included in here, we adopted a family subdivision and compound here to amend the LMO, and there's other things that we identify through Design Studio that may be appropriate considerations. And then once you have the sort of awareness, the orientation, there's some opportunities for ongoing exposure. I'll tell you that the town leadership team took the Gala tour several weeks ago, and I think we all gained gained a lot of value in that tour and gained a deeper appreciation of being able to go out and have a guided tour. It certainly provided a much deeper context for us. Then there's the Gala Museum and the Gala Heritage Mobile Tour I mentioned, certainly Mitchellville. We have an intimate relationship with Ahmad and the effort out at the historic Mitchellville Freedom Park. So it's really an awareness, it's a deeper understanding. Without this, it's a little difficult to provide the top level, best in class customer service that we need to be doing as a staff and organization. Well, let me go, before we go on to the next step. There were a few questions that were submitted by council since the last, since it was on the agenda back in July. And Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it up to you if you'd like me to run through these. I'm happy to do so, but I'll do it your direction.
Yeah, I think if you'd run through them, that would be fine, please.
Yes, sir, and I'll be as brief as I can because the responses are relatively straightforward and brief as well. There was a question about the purpose of the program to provide employees and officials with an understanding of the Hilton Island Gullah history and culture and to establish effective communication and service. There was a goal, which is it or is it both? And I think it's both. I think with deeper understanding, awareness and appreciation of history and culture provides better, more effective communication to the citizens of Hilton Head. For others that come here that don't have an understanding, whether it be a developer or a new resident, it helps us in our communication and service to all that come in contact with the organization. So I think it's both on those fronts. Also to find effective communication and service by who and for who. I think everyone that has a deeper understanding will improve their communication and service to others. I mean, I teach my children the importance of Gullah culture, and they've experienced it, and so I think they're better communicators with their peers and the folks that they come in contact with as well. There was a question about financing source for this orientation. We have a pretty wide onboarding program here with orientation on many elements. This would be a component of that orientation that would be handled primarily through the town and our human resource department and included in the orientation and ongoing training or education for staff. I think I covered the next question about educate area school teachers. Is this appropriate for the town? We're focusing this program and the recommendation to committee and council on staff and officials here at the town, not school teachers at this time. There was a question about train versus orient, and it suggests eliminating train. Again, I think this is an education program. This is all about educating, not necessarily training, but I think it's providing tools and background to help folks be better communicators and provide better service. So I think it's more of an education component. Family compounds and subdivisions, there was a suggestion of eliminating it. I just want to remind the committee that those changes were codified through LMO changes. And so we wouldn't suggest eliminating it. I think building on what we have in our at our disposal now and modifying to deliver better service as we move ahead. And then there was a question why. This has already been approved by town council. I think, I started almost 16 years ago. I remember on my first day getting the comprehensive plan, the RUDAT, the response to the RUDAT, the Ward 1 Master Plan, Stony Initiative, Chaplain Initiative. This, in my opinion, this has been part of an onboarding and orientation, But it's brought more into focus, I think, with this as a specific element to include as part of our onboarding. When I came on board, it may have been different than someone in IT. They may not have been given those same documents and background to help serve in their position, but I think it's important for everyone in the organization to have a shared understanding. Council did approve the report, I think with a vote of 7-0 back in 2019 on these recommendations. And this is delivery of the program to the committee and council to incorporate into its operations through the town manager. Program appears mandatory for town council and staff, consider voluntary. I believe that the staff orientation and awareness should be part of the mandatory onboarding and orientation. I certainly can't tell town council what to do, but I think it would be a benefit to all in the organization, whether at the elected level or at staff level. But and then a town should encourage all groups to share in the history of Hilton Head, not just one group. I certainly respect that comment. I think that the Gullah culture and history are, again, part of the DNA, and to not provide this as a component for awareness and education would provide a gap in our knowledge and understanding to provide that service and communication to a key component of the community, and be better ambassadors, again, to serve all here on the island. Those are all the questions. Those are the responses that were drafted, not my responses, but the responses that were drafted as sort of answers and clarification on those comments and questions. I can answer more questions. I'm happy to speak as long as you'd like me to be here. We've got a big crowd. They might be hungry for lunch. I don't know, but I think you've heard from me. I'm sorry, Mr. Harkins. I'm sorry. One last comment. I support this recommendation being part of orientation for my staff, and hopefully that it's part of the bigger organization recommendation for all staff. I do want to mention that Charles Cousins, my predecessor, brought in some folks to speak and provide awareness to the Community Development Department. We had lunch. We had a couple of speakers come in and give us that background and understanding. So I appreciated that when I was working under his tutelage. So this really kind of formalizes it and makes it part of our organizational expectations. So Mr. Harkins says if the next steps are the committee's consideration to recommend this to council. As I understand, if committee takes that action, it would be a brief later today at the town council meeting, and then it would be placed on the agenda for September 20th for town council consideration. I'm happy to answer any more questions you may have.
Thank you, Sean. And in my opinion, the Gullah History and Cultural Educational Program that's being advanced is a tremendous resource for the community and merits our support. I am only one of the committee. I'm going to turn it to our committee members to share their opinion, and then hopefully leading to a motion and a second, and then I will open it up for public comment. If I may, David, may I begin with you, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to frame this proposal differently. I see it as an opportunity for this community to distinguish itself, to be the castle on the hill, to aspire to something that is greater than our own self-interest. In and of itself, it may not be the answer, but it does have benefits to this community as a whole, as a place to live. It has benefits to its individual citizens. I can speak from my own personal standpoint. I have become a better person because of my relationships with the Native Islanders, the Gullah Geechee community on this island. It's a benefit to our economy because the brand distinguishes us from other places. We cannot overlook the community, the individual citizen, or the economy without risking this community's future. I'd like to emphasize the people-to-people relationship of what this proposal really means. Imagine for a second that you are entering a new community or somebody's home. I think most of us were brought up to enter that community or that home with open eyes, awareness, respect, sensitivity. Isn't that really what we're talking about today with this education, training? All those words are loaded. We have to get beyond that. All we're trying to do is understand one another better. Awareness, respect, sensitivity. That's all we're talking about. In the early years of the PUDs on Hilton Head Island, I didn't interact directly with Native Islanders because I was behind a gate, and we didn't have to worry about a town. We had the county telling us what to do or what not to do, and candidly, they left us alone. So if we were building a community behind the gate, we were doing it on our own time. But in 1983, this community was challenged by deciding whether or not it was going to be a community of 28,000 acres or whether it was going to be a community of 21,000 acres, essentially behind the gates. Zoning was introduced to this community not with full understanding of the impact on the existing culture. In other words, those of us who came to the island entered this community, this home, without an awareness, without respect, without sensitivity to what was already here. In 1995, and Sean has already mentioned this, there was the RUDAT study, and there was the Native Islanders' response to that RUDAT study, which was ignored by the community leadership. Again, without awareness, without respect, without sensitivity. I remember other times in this community when there was a controversy about the smoke that was wafting towards Hilton Head Plantation from the burning of leaves. When Native Islander fishermen were being told they couldn't fish off the beach. When a Native Islander was told and reprimanded for feeding stale bread to his pigs. Those were criticisms on the part of leadership in this town because of a lack of awareness, respect, and sensitivity. That's all we're talking about today. I urge us to simplify our language, to talk to each other as people, not as abstract identities. Simplify our language, simplify us, how we interact with each other. All we're talking about is knowledge, so that we can relate to one another with awareness, respect, and sensitivity. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Tom Lennox, please, your thoughts?
Thank you, Bill. I have followed the progress and the evolution of these recommendations coming from the task force led by Levon for a number of years. And I think that the final product as it pertains to this education program, the goals being to provide the town employees and officials with an understanding of the Gullah Geechee history and culture as well as future. And the second goal is to establish an effective ongoing communication between all communities. I think the goals are both appropriate and noble. And I think the evolution of this is now to the point where we need implementation.
Thank you, Tom. Glenn, please.
Thank you. I have only lived here for 16 years. I've been coming here pretty much all my life, but only lived here for 16 years. And in that time, I've made a lot of friends. And many of my friends in the Gullah community are here today. And I'm glad to see you here supporting this. Early on in my career on town council, the concept of approval of the overall Gullah Geechee project, as recommended by Levon Stevens, came before us for a vote. I'm proud to say that I voted for that at that time. I continue to support that, and I look forward to the opportunity of supporting this action as the next step in the implementation of that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Now moving to the committee as a whole, is there a motion coming forward to consider a resolution of the town of Hilton Head Island authorizing the implementation of the Gullah History and Cultural Education Program for the town employees and officials?
I would so move that.
Second.
Now I'd like to open it up to the public for comment, please.
Mr. Hoagland?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Hoagland has some comments,
It's a
sir.
little awkward because I'm not there, but
I've heard
could
enough.
you recognize people, please?
I've lived here for 47 years. I have made many native friends. The fact is, everybody has to understand our problems, our housing, traffic, and overdevelopment have been caused by one thing: no master land plan done for the last 45 years by Steve Riley and kick the can down the road politicians. It's only going to get worse as Bluffton continues its out-of-control development, one road, one bridge to 95 that does not work for what we have allowed. This lack of master land plan has severely impacted the Gullah community and all communities. This council continues its corruption, its tax robbery caused by zero full transparency, accountability, fraudulent internal hired financial audits, no forensic audits that hide millions of illegal issue and use of tax funds. And also they refuse FOIA laws, procurement laws. They've caused many state and federal violations by others to our tax funds. All taxpayers in our Gullah community has had enough of this council's corruption that has failed all of us. You violate your campaign promises to spend, approve, and guard tax money like your own. You abuse all of us like the game of Monopoly and funny money, not hard-earned tax money. We must start voting all of those proven dishonest and corrupt out of office. I encourage everyone to vote for Joanne Orshak for the new mayor to replace John McCann, who is proven corrupt. Alan Perry, a longtime insider, proven corrupt. Steve Arnold, ATAX committee, and Kim Likens, proven corrupt. And if they are willing to agree to change their ways, we could reconsider. Mr. Ames, I've listened to your heartfelt speeches for years. It does not match your actions. It's sickening. The Native community and our entire community has listened to this smooth talking for 47 years by you and other kick-the-can-down-the-road politicians, and it just gets worse. The fact is you're corrupt, and you vote to allow our monies to be robbed, and you know it. Now, if anybody called me in this room corrupt and dishonest, I would file a lawsuit against them. And I challenge anybody in this room to call me a liar and corrupt like I'm calling these people. Does anybody believe I'm a corrupt and a liar? Of course not, because I'm not. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to or address the committee? Dr. Campbell?
Good afternoon. I thank you for moving me up to a doctor. I'm just Maurice Campbell. Mr. Chairman and committee, let me just commend you on the action that you've just taken. I had a different speech, but you all will make me tear this speech up. But certainly, I sort of expected you to do what you did as far as being very much in tune as to what should be done. Prior to the incorporation of Hilton, had a lot of the elders on the island that are no longer with us basically said, and I think David reflected on it, and a few more people in the audience are well aware of what was said, was that as this town grow and become a town, it's going to become a town that is not going to be sensitive to everyone on the island, and is not going to give a hoot about Gala people, and Gala people are going to just basically be forgotten and thrown away. Thank you all for at least continuing your effort to make that statement a little bit not the real statement that it was set out to be. We think that what you're doing or what you have done today is a positive step in continuing the effort to educate people. We all know that knowledge is power, and those folks who are going to be serving us as town staff and you as an elected official or volunteering on the boards and commissions of the town, certainly the more you know about the people you're serving, the better you can serve. And that's what it's all about. That's what we think that life is all about. If we can just walk in another person's shoe for a little while, we can get a better understanding of that person and where that person is coming from. I commend you for not following down the road of our country as to where it's going, as far as divisiveness, as far as hate, as far as insensitivity, and as those things that are really dividing us as a country and in the world. You are making a genuine effort to make our little island, which is environmentally sensitive, not only for the turtles and the other wildlife and the plants, etc., but also for the most important species on this island, and that's the people of the island. I thank you for what you've done, and we certainly hope that you will continue to look at the people. When we say the people, we're talking about everyone, because if you hurt, I hurt, and when I hurt, you certainly will hurt. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Are there others that would like to come forward?
Mr. Barnwell?
Good evening. My name is Thomas C. Barnwell, Jr. I would like to express, as others, excuse me, my sincere thanks not only to those of you who are presently serving on town council with an open mind and a willingness to be of service to all of the residents and taxpayers, like a small taxpayer as my family. the Barnwell family on Hilton Head for years. I'll deviate for one quick second and say something that I don't normally go to, and that is, behold how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. I would like to express special thanks to all those, with minor exception, who have indicated, and Dr. Cohen especially, as a descendant. And I would like to express special thanks to Councilperson David Ames for remembering many of the days that has been difficult. Of course, you left out BASF and CBI, Chicago Bridge and Iron, that is, for those of you who want to research it. And for those of you who would like to research it, those of you who don't know, then was in existence the Hilton Head Island Fishing Cooperative. And I'm the last person standing. And I've only been on this island for 87 years now, of that group that took a shrimp boat. And the daughter of the owner of the boat is in this audience today. His name was David Jones. His name was mentioned earlier. That boat going to Washington, and the crew, and the consortium that came together to take that action was the kind of action that I hope not only this council will do the research and staff and try to remember and understand that at that point in life, this community had an interest in trying to unify, save the community, and try to improve the economic opportunities for all. I certainly encourage you to vote positive today and ask you to ask all the council members to please consider voting positive for this opportunity for us to dwell together in unity. Thank you for allowing me to appear.
Thank you, Mr. Barnwell. Is there
Yes, sir.
anyone else that
Yes,
come
sir.
forward?
Yes, sir. Ms. Sellers, Luana Sellers.
I'm going to be very brief because I'm sure everybody wants to get out of here for lunch. But what I do want to say is I appreciate your comments, Mr. Ames, and those of the committee. But I also want to remind you and remind the town and whoever is listening that the Gullah community and the people, a lot of the families that are in this room, were on this island prior to development and the bridge, and we all love and appreciate the beauty that surrounds us every single day, because if the Gullah community wasn't here and didn't protect the island the way that they did and love it the way that they did, we would not be able to enjoy what we have today. And everyone needs to know that, from the town staff to the island community. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward?
Yes, yes, sir. We have one more, and I apologize. Ms. Stevens.
Hello, and thank you. Mr. Ames, thank you for your kind words that you presented. I would like to say, as the daughter of David Jones, who owned the Captain Dave, that went to Washington, as him being a former member of the fishing co-op, as everything that has been taken from the Gullah community here, from the language in the schools, to land, to businesses not being here. On Hilton Head Island at one time, the Gullah community was the majority. Everything that Charles Frazier created was amazing, but we did get forgotten. We were forgotten along the way, and it would be extremely important to remember, to teach, to expand, and as you said, to build on that community. It's important to do so that we don't lose any more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Any other comment, please?
Patsy Bryson, please.
Good afternoon. Sorry about that. I'm not here to bring you peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, although my mom, as a daycare center director, would be doing that. I'm here to honor my sisters and brothers in this community as a co-founder of the Coalition of Island Neighbors. We support this program, the work of the task force, and we thank you for moving this forward. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't. Oh, sorry, Mr. Ward, Ahmad Ward.
Ahmad Ward, for the record. I'll make this quick as well. I want to thank this committee for moving in this direction. I'm just going to take it from another angle. In the work that I'm doing, we're seeing the importance of the Gullah Geechee heritage for people who are just beginning to learn it. And so when they come looking for it in the Low Country, we got to make sure that all the people who will see them coming onto our fair island understand the importance of it as well. So I'm happy to see that it's moving in this direction, because the stronger we are unified around this important culture, which really undergirds everything we do on Hilton Head, then the better we'll be going forward as we're trying to push little projects like this thing I might be working with over there around the corner with Mitchellville. It's part and parcel of that history. And if we accept that history as being a part of all of ours, and at the same time acknowledging the culture that really lives in it every day, we can only get stronger as a community. And so I think it puts our best foot forward that we're doing things in this way so that people who are coming here to work understand what really happened on this island. So I'm very happy to see it moving in this direction, and we hope that it will continue to move in this direction at the town council level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, that looks like it completes everybody who wants to speak.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's clear to me, and I think my colleagues, that this educational program that's being advanced can in fact lead to greater understanding and respect for each other's, and certainly an enhancement of community love among all on this island. We have a motion before us. It's been made and seconded. Tammy, I'd like to call for the vote, please.
Sure. Mr. Ames?
Approve.
Mr. Stanford?
For the motion.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes,
Motion carries, sir.
thank you. Thank you for the unanimous vote. And if there's nothing else to come before this body, we stand adjourned, and we want to thank the public for your active participation. Thank you.